Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Clockwork Dandy Noodles, the channel where Becca is slowly wrapping up this season now. We're getting there. We're finally entering the final phases. The anime stories are coming to an end, and it's going to be a sad finale because I've really enjoyed this season, guys. Really enjoyed it. But make sure you are subscribed because very shortly, I think in about 5 days now, she says, perhaps, I can't quite remember, my wrap-up video for the season is going up. It's scheduled, I just can't remember exactly which day I picked, but I will tell you what my top 3 anime for the season were, and what I am watching next season and plan to break down with you guys, because next season is an interesting one. It's a season of sequels and isekai, and there are some gems wrapped in the mix, so quite a few little different things coming your way. And I look forward to sharing with you guys what I plan to be watching next season. I think it's time just to dive on in. Let's just dive on into episode 12, because there were a few little bits and pieces that I predicted would happen, but there's also some questions and a little bit of, the more I think about it, the more things unravel. So I'm trying not to think about it too hard. We find out that Ayayoshiki, our big AI network, our being, a sentient being of everything, a hive mind. I'm going to keep calling it a hive mind. It was built 115 years ago. And it was there to calculate and help the humans and help them evolve and grow. However, the humans that birthed it, its parents, ended up becoming so dependent on the child that they ended up even turning on the AI. So turning on the kids that they created, where the AI eventually said, you know what, screw it, don't want you guys anymore, gonna wipe you out. That is a very watered down version, but that's how I'm going to stick with it for now. Now, Ayayoshiki has been an audience member with us all the way through Vivy's mission, watching her, and annoyingly, it did say, no matter what you ended up changing, they always tried to make the result somewhat similar to the main storyline. So Aoshiki was there, somehow ensuring that any of the changes didn't veer too far away from the original path. We didn't change anything because it was always shoehorning it back in. Now, the problem where I start to think about it more and more is, how does a AI network have control over the very nature and fabric of time? We're talking things like butterfly effect, we're talking ripples here. Ayayoshiki is just still an AI at the end of the day, and things like fatality, causality, fatalism, all of this kind of stuff, the idea that things happen for a reason, or things, the way things happen in life, just life in general, okay? The word I'm looking for is life. The more I think about this, the more things don't quite fit. So for now, we're just going to say that Ayayoshiki has always had a hand in the after effects. So when Ophelia died, it made sure that people still saw it as officially what it was, a suicide, and AI couldn't be with what it wanted to be with, so it ended up taking its own life. So the idea of free will. So we're going to stick with this, but the more I think about things, the more it unravels. It does say that Vivy's free will right at the end was a first of a kind. And this is what ended up fascinating Aoshiki, because all up to this point, it's been watching the AIs, it's a network of all of them. And Vivy is the first of the very kind, a kind of an amalgamation, a meet in the middle, because being able to show free will is a very human aspect. So up until this point, she is the only AI to have done so. And then it ends up cutting us, not hearing its final message to Vivy. Now, Vivy's expression at this point was something that was bothering me, especially when the cube even said that he really regretted failing her. When the alter ego ended up being destroyed, he couldn't let it go. And this is a great arc on him, because it shows that he felt shame. He felt bad that she ended up vanishing along the way. And up until this point, he's been a cube who only really thinks about the goal. His goal really was just saving humanity. Not so much all of the ifs and whats along the way. He was just a straight-minded, that's what we were introduced to him as, just going, this is the goal, I will beat you up if you try to interfere. But at this point, we see him actually showing remorse, the fact that he was sad that this happened. But it's Vivy's expression during this point where you know that she's been told something by Aoshiki. Obviously, at this point, I'm writing my notes as I was watching, so I'm reading past Becca's notes with the knowledge of the actual ending. But that last comment is something that she seemed to be feeling very guilty about. It looks like she's really painfully looking in on herself, especially later on as well, where someone actually says, you know, who better to save humanity than you? And again, it's that face which is telling me that whatever you've been told, you are starting to feel guilty about this outcome. You feel partially to blame about this outcome, which obviously makes sense a bit later on, but that's what started to give away that she was starting to, maybe even not appropriately, take the blame for what has happened. Now, the satellite crash, again, if I think about it too much, it bothers me. And now it ends up being quite apocalyptic in the sense where we'll talk about the actual crash in a moment. But in the real life, I mean, some satellites are the size of a golf ball. And things entering the Earth's atmosphere at speed tend to burn up if they're that small. Small things like that. Obviously, I am not a scientist and I'm sure bigger stuff would cause damage. But also bear in mind that a lot of the Earth is covered in ocean. So a lot of those satellites are going to hit the water if they are big enough to enter. I still don't think the amount of damage that it ends up doing is appropriate, but I could be horrifically wrong. And if you are a space engineer out there, feel free and hello and welcome. It's an honour to have you here. But initially, Vivy hides the encounter she's had with Aoshiki. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't tell anybody, oh, wait, they made contact. I made contact. Where she starts to ask about the reason why she really was chosen. And it actually turns out that poor Osamamoto, as I've been calling him, he lost everything. He ends up losing his child as well. So the one thing that he had left at the end of the day to remind him of his wife, everything is gone. Vivy singing was something that brought everybody joy. And it's something that he cherishes it as well, because the things that he loved found joy in her singing, and that's what made him happy. The idea of heart, as we're about to go into, is what you define as heart. So to him, the idea of a heart is what I feel happy because someone I love feels happy. This makes me happy, therefore I can put my heart into doing this. So that's what made him feel that Vivy was really the right person to choose. She still can't tell him anything, and she does hide the fact that she pretty much has spoken to the network itself. And then he says that she really was the perfect model for a new beginning, where it really does, it's that look on her face again, the idea that she feels like she has failed everybody. Osamamoto ends up pulling the virus cube aside at the end. That's how you know that there's a second plotline going on, and I'm so happy that these two end up pairing up together. It's just looking at Vivy's face, obviously she doesn't realise it, but people around her who have spent quite a bit of time with her can read her expressions, and that again makes her a bit more human. Being able to express yourself and read expressions like a human being, being treated like a human at this point. Somehow, Vivy and the Toke end up landing on Ayayoshiki, but uninterrupted. So not a single drone ends up intercepting them. There's no more of those floating drones floating around or anything. So we've got a all-powerful Ayayoshiki is letting them pretty much come in uninvited. But I will say, I will be removing this in about a minute because they do actually acknowledge this. Vivy is then troubled once again, and she starts to continue asking that again, what does it mean to be, sing with all of your heart? Because at this point, she's been tasked with a very important decision, which she can't do. And she feels like she needs to know what it means to pour her heart in to do that one thing that she's been tasked to do. And up until this point, all the way through this entire anime, the one thing she wants to do, which is singing with all my heart to make everybody happy, which ends up being the big decision at the end of this anyway, she still can't do it. She hasn't got that information she needs. She's agonising too much. Beth and Vivy do make a killer team. Absolutely love seeing these two fighting side by side. Rubik's Cube ends up calling out the sin. And he even says something here isn't right. So again, we can, I guess, remove the sin because he even admits this isn't right. There should be more people on the ground. There should be more opposition. And of course, it kind of felt like a trap. The idea to lure a certain somebody there. And it's a very gruesome battle sequence next. I can't show too much because, again, human bean juice, my friends. A YouTuber is not a fan of the human bean juice. But it is gross. We see more humans dying to a... and I'm going to have to credit this one. The idea that Ayayoshiki can rezone itself. I think this is actually quite a nice, unique idea. The fact that it starts to, if anything, it's protecting itself. It's able to adjust, it's able to change the way it is, reassemble itself, become something else, and then change. I actually think I like this little technique. They've given it this little quirk. I really like that little quirk. It's bad for humans, but it's a cool quirk. We get to the first of our deaths, but not a permanent one on this side, is Yu. Ends up giving up her life, but she does, before she dies, she gives Beth some final orders. The way she faces death, I have to just hand it to her. Big mega claps and kudos for her. And it's a very sad sequence. Her telling Beth, as a friend, I consider you a friend, equals, again, the idea of equalism here. Your last order is simply just to shut down the archive. Then we can create a world that we stand together in. Farewell for you, because you believe this is her final farewell. You're coming back there, you're coming back. But it's really nice just seeing Beth also being affected by the understanding that, you know, I might not see you again. But even though she does kind of go, I will be back for you, which is quite nice. But it's nice to see a true development between a true friendship develop. You ending up greeting her death with a friendly, warm smile, greeting it as I want to know, get to know you, and then dying. That's such a sad way of going. Just the fact that even at the end, she was trying to reason and see them just as equals. You know, you're an equal. Hello, who are you? What's your name? It's fine. She's coming back. The next sequence, the fight sequence within Ayayoshiki itself, where we're flying around, we've got all those colours going on. Oh, the sound score is absolutely beautiful. I love the sound score. The virus cube ends up being replicated, so we have a fight against himself. We have virus cube versus like virus cube. Beth ends up jumping and sacrificing herself to allow Vivy to go forward, to continue on. I like it. It's fantastic. Beth is a very firm favourite character. I really do like her as a character. Vivy ends up all on her own, which seems like this is what they wanted. It does seem like this is what was intended. The words themselves that Aoshiki was saying at the end is, we entrust you with one future. The creepy autonomous singing once again is so creepy. It's unnerving. I hate that. But it ends up with Virus Cube protecting Vivy, but the clock finally hitting 0. The soundtrack at this point, I love the soundtrack for this episode. The piano piece is so beautiful and it just goes so gorgeously as the clock finally hits 0 for mankind. I still feel like this is a little exaggerated with the amount of damage it does, because I do believe most of the satellites up in space right now are tiny. They're teeny little things. I feel like they would burn up in the atmosphere of Earth as they hit quite a good velocity coming in, but I could be wrong. This could be a real thing, unless I'm thinking too deep, guys. I know I'm thinking too deep. This is a beautiful vigil when we have the burning landscape. Vivy is behind a cracked set of glass. Gorgeous visual. Everything is alight on fire as Vivy is on her knees, apologizing repeatedly. It's a nice visual, the idea of a shattered, broken future. Maybe the hopes are now at this point shattered because this timeline is pretty much done for. We have to now try and do a redo. It's a goodbye to this one. But I do feel like Ayayoshiki really wanted Vivy there. It wanted to welcome her in. Chosen to make that big decision. She's the one who's going to make the decision. And she ends up unable to make that call this time round. We are told that every satellite in the sky has fallen. And that's when we just continue with the I'm sorry over and over again, where Vivy finally tells Rose Cube about what Ayayoshiki actually said. Now, this is a bit of a confusing one. So, Ayayoshiki saw this song, the song that she wrote with her own free will, as a sign of hope to AI. The idea that AI are equal to humans, were able to write something that humans too can write. Vivy was given an opportunity. She was given an opportunity. If you sing, we will shut down the AI. It feels like the AI was trusting Vivy because they saw her as the closest thing to a new race, to make the decision that if you sing, we will respect your decision, we're going to call it all off. But Vivy couldn't actually bring herself to sing. We know she's been having some issues with singing. She doesn't believe she can sing unless she puts her entire heart into something. Although at this point, I feel like she should have been able to just sing and close things down. But it also feels like she didn't want to close down the AI as well. Vivy still believing that there might be a middle ground to save both AI and humans. I don't know if they really would have actually shut down all of the AI, but it does seem like the Aoshiki is saying we will honour your wish. I don't know if I fully believe they will. Maybe they would have, but I guess we might get a chance to find out on our next go through. But we are also told that Aoshiki stopped the virus cube and Vivy going berserk. It didn't let them go berserk. It wanted them to stay the way they were. I mean, that kind of makes sense, especially with Vivy, where you don't want to tamper with Vivy because you see her as the closest thing to a new race. You're not going to interfere with her. I'm not entirely sure because Beth also didn't go berserk, but that might have been Ayoshiki's doing as well, just to try and make her feel better, because they did initially believe it was old software, which kind of made sense because there was a lot of AI there, especially those older models from Metal Float, who weren't going berserk. So I still don't think I fully believe that, but I do believe that as well the old software thing was actually legit. But Vivy ended up not saving anybody. Where we probably get one of the best defining moments for the virus cube, where Vivy again is still saying she can't sing with her heart, where the virus cube probably says the most deepest line for him is, you define what makes a heart. It's these words which show us probably the biggest development for him, where the words end up spurring her to recall everything. It's a very nice little spark within Vivy. It's also a very nice arc because we also see him admitting, I needed you. You're a pain in the butt, you're a pain in my side, but I needed you at the same time, because he accepts that you interfering was probably some of the best things that happened, because she would bring to the party, to the two of them, stuff that he himself couldn't see. It's a very nice section. The piano scaling at this point is absolutely gorgeous. Really like it as we start to head into our resolve now. Vivy's new resolve, where she ends up thinking about what really defines her heart, where what comes to mind is the idea of the feelings, the emotion, the people, the hopes, everybody she's met along her way, the people who matter the most, the people around her who have shown her what it means to sing with your heart. So a few of us did call that this would happen. So go us, we kind of figured it out. But we've got one more attempt. One more attempt now. We're not going back 100 years. We're just going back to the moment that they end up waking up, the moment everybody goes to rampage. He doesn't quite know that Aoshiki has been interfering, so why you wouldn't send her back just a little bit further is a bit strange. But it feels like Vivy had to lose it all, so we've hit this rock bottom zero. When the counter hit zero, everything was lost by her own hands. For her to suddenly realise, I actually think I know what I've been looking for. The answers to what you've been looking for always arrive when you've lost everything. I like this kind of memento, that she's hit proper rock bottom, the clock hit zero, and now we're going to go back with a bit more fire, a bit more passion. But everything comes at a cost, and it's a very sad cost to this one. Osamamoto is going to accept that he cannot be saved. So he's going to end up dying to the hands of the robots, which actually lines up more efficiently with the first timeline we saw, with him actually dying and him then pushing the button and that's it. That does line up a bit better, which is quite sad. It does also make you wonder whether we would have had any time paradoxes at this point. You know, the idea that if you died, you would never have pushed that button and a lot of that kind of thing. So timeline at this point gets a little bit mushy. The human future, humankind, everything is now resting on Vivy once again. The main theme ends up playing and our boy Osamu finally dies. He is gone. Sadly, I don't think he's getting a redo, but Vivy ends up saving you and Beth. So it looks like we have at least saved these two for this time round, which is sad because I really did like Osamu. But at the same time, everything that was important to him also died. So he may have felt that he didn't really have a great deal to live for at this point. It's the official goodbye to him for now, unless we are going to bring him back. I don't think they will. It would also make his sacrifice feel a little bit more cheap if we did that to him. But how is the story going to end? Are we going to be able to change anything? Is Vivy going to bring herself to be able to sing? I feel like she might. I feel like she might be able to. It's been a 100-year journey, guys, and I've had some interesting thoughts along the way. This anime is definitely one that's made me think about things in a different way. The idea of fatalism as well. The idea that things might be interlinked and whether you can unpin things just by changing one tiny thing. I think the answer to that question really was no. I think they weren't changing enough to get it to go away from the main line, but then that also linked to the idea that Aoshiki was trying to keep it contained and keep it relatively similar to still have the same outcome. But then at the end of the day, her song ended up bringing a sense of hope to Aoshiki. So they believed that Vivy was the right person to entrust to make the decision, should we have this future, where Vivy failing is a bit of an odd one as well. She had too much weight on her shoulders, ends up not being able to sing, and the counter hits zero and it's goodbye humans. She's going to have to be brave, step it up and sing next time, because I do think there is a result here where AI and humans can live as equals. So I think that's what we're gearing up for. And plus saving you, because she's all moderate, she's in the middle, she's going for equalism, she's not as extreme as Kakatani himself was. I think that's where we're going there. It's a fun anime. It's got wit written all over it. Wit do a lot of these kind of animes where they are deeper. There's obviously a lot of layers to them. They made HAL as well, and I keep telling people to go watch HAL because you will see some of the original line works for the idea of robotics there in that story, because it's all based around a human AI. And Wit is so good at bringing original stories like this to life, and I think that's what makes Vivy even more special, is the fact that it is an original story. You can't go and read it. You can't go somewhere and read Vivy. None of us knew the ending, so we were all just speculating, which I think makes it even more fun. All my other videos are based on light novels, mangas, and people are generally not doing a great job of hiding things in the comments, and I understand it's very exciting to see something you read brought into the screen. But something like Vivy, you can only speculate, and that's what makes it even more fun talking to you guys, is the speculation at the end of the day. Like, we didn't quite know where we were going. It was constantly, we were just speculating, going maybe this, and then at the end they seeing us all eventually arriving to kind of the right conclusion. We all figured that the song was a trigger, or we all figured that we would probably have to dive back one more time to jump. So, gonna be interesting to see where we go. I believe next episode we're gonna see Vivy sing, finally, save the human race, whatever ends up not being massacred by the AI, and I think that will be it. I think that will be Vivy ensuring the future for everyone. Next week's title is Vivy Fluorite's Ice Song. We've got to have a episode named after the anime itself. It's only right. So I will see you guys next week for the end episode. This is it. By next week, you will also have seen my video for the wrap-up of the season. So go and check it out. Is Vivy on that list? Very interesting stuff. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.